Oh my goodness. I've never really thought that I can actually bring back a story again that was a part of the rant or that was a part of something else and then turn it into a main story. But this episode is actually going to do that. Interestingly enough. Although, for context, this episode is going to be about bonds because some bonds are on the verge of breaking and others are on the verge of being insured before they possibly break. Because I guess instead of it actually breaking and people getting hurt, why not get insurance on that? But interestingly enough, I feel like some of these so-called insurance policies or just policies to secure someone almost seem like just someone finding a way to actually benefit from the other side. I don't know. It's definitely something that we are meant to discuss, and I think, if I'm not wrong, the title should pretty much reflect what the main topic is about. But before I get into that, of course, there is something that I do want to address first. And, okay, let's see. New York teacher accused of sexual relationship with mentally ill 16-year-old student. I don't know. I'm not going to discuss that one, just mostly because I feel like I've discussed so many pedophile type cases and sexual abuse cases, and this one doesn't even sound like it's that interesting, so I will move on to something that seems a little bit more interesting. That is a couple with 3 kids who have recently discovered that they're cousins after 10 years of marriage. Okay. Now this one sounds a lot more my alley and it even seems relevant to what's there, so without further ado...
Get ready for the battle of the sexes.
Okay, I'm sure if you're Muslim, you're probably a little confused with this because how exactly is this news? But for the rest of us, let me just read this thing real quick so that I can kind of get into it because it's actually very, very short. And there's like no videos or anything, but I might as well just read it. So it says, and I quote, "After 3 kids and 10 years of marriage, Selena and Joseph Quinones discovered they were related through the use of a DNA test. In an interview with People, the couple opened up about the discovery after sharing the revelation in a viral TikTok video last month." End quote. Okay, maybe there was a TikTok video that I should have looked for in relation to this, which I didn't, which is a little bit sloppy on my part, but just forgive me for this one time. I'm hoping that I don't make such mistakes in the future. But alright, first of all, this is particularly interesting. Like when these guys were calling all the guests to the wedding, I'm wondering if they really didn't notice that, you know, these guys are probably related in some way. But considering that they are cousins and they are related and they did get married and they did shag so that they could have kids, the first thing that we need to do is particularly simple. So, without further ado... Okay. Now, we do need to have this discussion about people and shagging cousins because, you know, not unless if your Kabi were Jesus or one of his family members, the whole concept of Sweet Home Alabama and shagging your cousins is a little bit foreign to you. But essentially, I do think that to a certain degree, marrying or shagging your cousin can particularly be okay if you're following the whole Muslim mandate of like the 4th cousin. Because when you think about it, by the time you're getting to your 4th cousin, it's probably not as bad as you might think because they're technically not your cousin. So essentially, you're pretty much trying to force some sort of a link and a bond, but considering that there are some people that might want to stone me for this, or that might think that I look at my cousins a type of way, I'm just gonna leave it at this because the podcast has something particularly different to talk about and start things off in a much fresher way, which involves me saying... Welcome to Breaktime on West Side, your number 1 Breaktime podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who likes to keep things familiar because charity... Actually, fuck that. I'm not gonna throw myself into that hole just for the sake of a joke, so I'm leaving it where it is. He's a man whose cardio routine involves him running his mouth. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denverby. The show is Battle of the Sexes, our weekly love, sex, and relationships show where I get to talk about relationships. I might involve a bit of family here and there. Normally, some people would disagree, but I usually like it when you give that feedback. And you can give that feedback via IG or via Facebook or via Twitter. through the handles that are in the description. On IG, on Facebook, it is at Breaktime. On my side, on Twitter, it is at Bagaka the D. The DMs are always open and you can slide in through there. And I would be more than happy to take your feedback. And especially if you have like podcast episode recommendations, you can send them through there. Because I'm not gonna lie, that first bit, trying to get a joke out of that without putting myself in a precarious position, has been hard. It has been very, very hard. But anyways, all that said and done, we do have a main topic that we need to discuss, which does involve a prenup and a goat. But before I get into that, I want us to discuss some of the problems that some people in relationships trying to get married and even in marriages might be facing. And that is a problem of sex. Now, while I was on IG sometime about 2 weeks ago, I stumbled upon a post that had been posted up by the sex therapist known as Maurice Madeka, who I've had on the podcast before on the episode known as Sex and the Shitty Parts 1 and 2, which actually are some of my most popular episodes. And it was a post that he had which was based off of a conversation that he had with a particular lady. Now, I'm gonna read this convo for you and, remove his part because it's not particularly important, and I can get into something that I feel should be discussed quite a bit in today's day and age. So it reads, and I quote, "Hi Maurice, I really need your help. I am meant to be getting married in July to a really nice guy. We have been together for 4 years. He is loving, kind, and generous. He is the perfect sweetheart. The problem is that I strayed in February while on holiday with my girls. I met this guy and after a whole day and night of drinks, one thing led to another. During that period, we had sex 4 times. Since then, we have met up another 6 times. I think he is the Masimba you speak of because I have never come so much, like never ever. It's been a mind-blowing roller coaster. Every time he texts me, I get wet. I know I sound messed up, but I love my guy. He is going to be a good husband and provider, but our sex life has been wanting. My friends convinced me that sex is not important when you have a loving man who can cater for your needs, but I think the universe was sending me a message when I met this guy. The dude ate my pussy for like 2 hours when we met. He kept saying push out, then I remembered your posts. I was like, this guy must know Madeka. He actually does, lol. I am so conflicted right now. Can a man improve his game? Can my man learn how to eat pussy or at least make me come several times before he penetrates? I don't want bad sex for the rest of my life after this new experience." End quote. Alright, so having read this, first of all, for those of you that were particularly keen, you guys just noticed the fact that this babe is cheating on her fiancé. And that is wrong, and we do not endorse cheating on this podcast, and I get it. You're perfectly right to think that. Except that that's not actually what I'm listing this post on this episode about. It's not even about the cheating. If anything, I might even go as well to even ignore the entire thing because there's a much bigger issue that's underlying here. And it's the issue of pleasuring your partner, whether husband, whether wife, whether boyfriend, whether girlfriend. We actually need to start having this conversation, whether you call yourself mature or young or grown. We need to start having this conversation around having good sex. Just one of those things that I feel should probably be pointed out, because in this day and age, you actually telling someone that the quality of sex in their relationship doesn't matter might actually be some of the worst advice you might be giving that person. Be they their friend, be they your enemy, be they just some random stranger that you're talking to. And I'm not saying that you need to prioritize sex above everything else. No, that's not particularly the case. It's just that in the light of things such as sexual compatibility, you kind of need to understand that sex has actually become a pretty important thing in relationships right now, whether you're getting married or not. And I'll even tell you why this is a problem. Because the moment a lot of us started having sex before marriage, and more so out of relationships, we pretty much opened Pandora's box into the life of what good and bad sex feels like. And guess what? The moment people open Pandora's box to that opened up the possibility that quality of sex can actually ruin a good relationship. Kid you the fuck not, because in this particular case, this babe got a taste of good dick, or at least, someone else's mouth on her pussy, which was way better than what her boyfriend of I don't know how long has been giving to her. And as a result, now she's starting to feel some type of way, because she knows that the dude is a great guy, he's going to be a great provider, he's gonna be a great husband, maybe might even be a great father, of which I'm not gonna lie, I actually kind of hate it when a babe starts with, I have this great guy, but, because you already know that it's most likely going to be something that involves sex or dick. But the possibility of spending the rest of her life with this one guy that she wants to be faithful with, because it sounds like she wants to be faithful with dude, but have shitty sex, is something that she's just not comfortable with. So on one end, this guy probably does need to up his sex game, or at least learn how to eat pussy properly, or the alternative side of this is that this babe continues cheating on dude from before they were married all the way till when they're already married. And I'm not really liking that latter option right now, because like I always say on this podcast, we do not endorse cheating. So while some people might be like, oh, you know, guys usually do this from time to time, blah blah blah, I'm trying to advocate for a much better world instead of what it is that you believe that a bunch of other guys do. So personally speaking, I feel like dude should probably learn to step up, or at least dude should listen to his babe if the babe says that they need to work on their sex game, because at the end of the day, it works to his favor if he learns how to pleasure his woman better. And word of advice to all the fellas, hell, even the women, because I believe this kind of needs to be unisex, you all need to start getting reviews from your partners on how your sex game is and how it could be better. Because to be very honest, some of you are giving shit sex and you think you're giving the business just because someone is staying with you. And the reality of it is they're staying with you for other reasons that might end up not satisfying them, such that they end up going to look for better sex elsewhere. But all that said and done, I will leave it at that because we do have a main topic to discuss. So moving it on to our main topic of today. Now, if you guys remember last week, I was busy discussing the GOAT himself. The man who beat the system in a way that the system did not believe it could be beaten. The guy who checkmated both feminists and the family court system by ensuring that his wealth was not touched because it was in his mother's name. That man is none other than Ashraf Hakimi. And the whole divorce story really became news last week and, you know, the weekend before because of the whole scenario. And it even got better once another piece of information came out stating that now they would be splitting the wife's wealth. Now, of course, that went ahead and pissed off quite a number of women who obviously decided that this was something that was really, really bad. And one of those women, who happens to be an attorney on TikTok, decided to make a video advocating for prenups, or at least talking about the advantages of a prenup for the babe. Now, I'm gonna play the clip for you and then I'm gonna go into it because I feel like there's quite a lot that needs to be discussed here. Especially from a guy's point of view, because this babe was really speaking for the babe. So without further ado.
So if you haven't heard, Moroccan soccer player Hakimi is engaged in this vicious divorce battle with his soon-to-be ex-wife over assets to be distributed upon a divorce. The problem is Hakimi took all of his assets and put them in his mama's name. Now, the fact that he did that, that's a whole nother video. I'm going to give you tips on how to make sure you never end up in this situation. Step 1, get a prenup. I've talked about this before. I'm going to talk about it again. And you might be thinking, I don't have enough assets for a prenup. A prenup will mandate both parties to disclose what assets they have, where they're located, and whose name they're in. If she would have done that, she would have known from the beginning he has nothing in his name. Step 2, I want you to have a provision in your prenup that requires you to get paid out for every year that you are sitting at home taking care of the family and taking care of the kids. And you might be thinking, oh, I don't need to do that. Shut up. Shut up. Society is going to pressure you into a lot of things. Your love for the family is going to pressure you into a lot of things. And you need a payout in the event that you sacrifice your entire career and sit at home, because you're not going to be able to jump back into the freaking work market with a gap in your resume. Step 3, and this is something I'm personally going to have in my prenup, have a payout clause for every child you bring into this world. And you might be thinking, oh, you're not doing a big job by bringing a child into this world. It's your duty. Shut up. Okay, shut up. The mental, physical, emotional toll that's going to take on your body, on who you are as a person, it's going to change you forever. And let's be completely honest, when you are divorced and you have to go back into the dating market, they're going to treat you as a single mother with children very differently than a rich man who's divorced and has kids. It's not going to impact him or his life. It's going to impact you. So make sure you're compensated for it.
Okay. All right, to be very honest, I was actually laughing when I was prepping for the episode with this clip. Actually, when I read the title, which said, Attorney on TikTok encourages all women to get a prenup after soccer player Ashraf Hakimi is set to get half of his wife's net worth after she filed for divorce. I've been smiling, giggling, and all out bursting out laughing about this clip. Whether I was checking out the first time or even right now, it just makes me so happy to see this. Not because it's like there's a massive payout and Ashori is supposed to get bans or anything, because I think that's the only nice thing to smile or laugh about in the video if you actually listen to it. But it's just the whole feeling of they're finally knowing what it's like to be a dude for once. This is exactly what it's like to be a dude going through divorce. I'm not saying it from experience, but a lot of guys talk about this, and they talk about how their entire financial future gets wrecked because of one divorce. And there's some people who've had 3 or 4 of them. So in the great words of the comedian known as Andrew Schultz, fellas, get down here. We've reached common ground. Because honestly, with the way the GOAT himself has played this game, the babes themselves are actually having to think about the same things that dudes have thought about, worried about, and have been turned against because it makes them look bad, yet it's supposed to sort of help secure them. But anyways, all that said and done, I don't want to make it sound like I'm just having this clip so that I can take a shit on the babes, but it's mostly because I feel like this whole topic of prenups needs to be discussed. Now, first of all, before I get into anything, in as much as I'm laughing and making fun of the babes because, they got checkmated and now they're thinking of prenups, I'm actually very pro prenup. And a lot of other guys are actually very pro prenup. I think it's just that for quite a number of guys, it seems particularly expensive and you'd need to have a lot of assets for the prenup to sort of make sense to some of them. But all in all, me, just like many other guys, are actually very for the prenup. But it's interesting that the babes are finally getting into it right now. But let's go and look at a couple of the things that this babe had said. So the first thing that she was talking about was the declaration of wealth, and how if Hakimi had actually declared his wealth and he'd have shown that all of his assets are with the mom, then the babe would have known. But when you kind of think about it, if the babe knew about Hakimi's situation and how all of the wealth is under the mom's name, then either A, she might not have married the dude, or B, if she was already married to the dude and she found out, or even though she decided to get married to the dude, it's not like she'd have initiated a divorce. She'd have probably just left the guy or just simply separated with the dude and left, whether amicable or not amicable, and she'd have just gone on her way. Because at the end of the day, most of the babes that will divorce a guy will end up divorcing a guy for financial reasons, or because they're completely tired of the guy and they do not want anything to do with him, or, and this one's probably very, very rare, or should I call it specific, but they want to get into some sort of other marriage, or they want to go into another bond with someone else, which requires them to not be legally bound to another person, like in a place that doesn't allow polygamy or polyamory of some sort. So they will need to divorce. Those are particularly the main reasons that babes will sort of get out of a marriage and choose to go for the divorce. And a lot of times babes will get into a divorce, or at least babes will file for divorce because they want to get some money out of dude. So the declaration of wealth, if he did that, he'd pretty much be showing all of his cards, and babe probably wouldn't have gotten married to him. Although on the flip side, I don't know if there's any clause against you actually moving your assets or wealth, whether in bulk or in small amounts, to another family member so that you don't have to give any payouts or anything. Because if you don't have money to pay out, then it's not like you're supposed to be obligated to do that shit, right? Then secondly, because we kind of need to continue with this, she was talking about a payout for staying at home because she has sacrificed her career life, the progression that she'd have had to stay and take care of the kids, of which I sat and thought about that for a second and very quickly said, bullshit. Because when you think about it, I don't know, maybe it's just me that's looking at it, but if you want to play the comparison game like that, guys are also sacrificing, and our sacrifice actually matures in the long term to actually sort of work against us sometimes. because when you think about it, she is sacrificing her professional career and, going up the ladder and making more and gaining more status in favor of chilling with the kids and helping them grow up and actually nurturing them pretty well so that they can be particularly good, of which that actually has a payout where the kids actually will be more thankful, will be more loving, and will probably treat you better. But when you look at it from the guy's side, he is sacrificing time spent with the kids in favor of chasing the professional career and going up and making more money and either moving to a better place and getting bigger roles or just advancing upwards and making more cash, because obviously children are expensive, of which that sacrifice that he makes might actually come back to bite him, because those kids probably might not appreciate him that much, because it's not like he was going to be there every single time they had a soccer game or every single time they had these very intimate moments or in iconic points of their lives, because the dude was busy working. And at the end of the day, they'll look at the dad like he wasn't there for them as much as the mom was, even though the dad probably wished that he could be, which is why a lot of dads are very underappreciated in today's day and age. So you think about it, dude is pretty much sacrificing just about as much as the woman did. Then also, when you think about it, it is her peer pressure, the one that is coming from society, her love from the kids. It is her being affected by peer pressure and choosing to settle down and pretty much take care of the kids and stay at home. But why is it that you're paying for it as a man? Huh? Wasn't that her choice? Like, this is me probably arguing on a bit of an extreme level, but wasn't it her choice to actually do that? So why is it that you have to pay for it? Then on top of that, that's the paying out for the kids, which I can probably argue against, but some people are pretty much for it. And there's multiple prenups where people actually talk about giving like a certain lump sum every time the wife has a certain kid. Because I think it was in Beyonce and Jay-Z's prenup, there was a clause like that. But personally, I'm not entirely for it, because I don't see why I need to pay my woman for a natural action that she's done, because at the end of the day, I was also required for that. But while I can argue that, I can still understand the kind of labor and pain and annoyances that come with being a pregnant woman. So we can sort of argue that out to a very little degree. But the part that intrigues me the most is why this babe is talking about how, if the relationship ends and you go back into the dating market as a single mom with kids, you'll be treated very differently than a divorced single man with kids. Like, I sit and I think about it for a second and I'm like, bitch, what? Like, why the fuck am I supposed to care about how you're supposed to look at when you go back out there to being single? Like, first of all, we're supposed to be in it for happily ever after, or whatever the fuck it is that people usually say. Ride or die or some shit. But you're telling me that I'm supposed to give enough of a damn that I give you a payout for producing children, because just in case you go back into the dating market, you're going to be treated worse? Like, if you get more money and you're now a single mother with kids, wouldn't you just be a rich single mother with kids? Like, how does that change anything? If you're a single mother with kids and booty, that could change a lot, because booty can actually change quite a bit in this entire equation. But being a rich single mom, that don't change shit. It just means that you'll probably spend it on a couple of other dudes here and there. But all in all, the bottom line of all of this is a lot of what she's saying is supposed to actually secure the babe. And it is supposed to protect the interests of the woman in this particular case, because Ashraf Hakimi's wife has definitely lost half of her shit, which is very sad for her, because now she actually gets to know what it's like being a man. So the reality of it is, we are getting to a particularly interesting time in our lives, or at least we're already there. And to kind of conclude all of this, I do believe in getting a prenup, because we're at a point in time in our lives where people are incredibly individualistic. And even though people are talking about how they're willing to give everything for the relationship, nowadays you're hearing more and more stories of people trying to take what's theirs, people trying to gain from the other person, and so on and so forth. So if you don't trust that your finances will be very safe if you go into a marriage, then get a prenup. Secure what's yours, let her secure what's hers. And keep it the same way when you're flipping the tables. Because at the end of the day, if you don't trust the fact that your partner is actually someone that you can fully entrust to be with you and not target your finances at any given point in time, then you might as well secure yourself, because at the end of the day, in as much as you may believe in ride or die or happily ever after, you have to acknowledge that reality exists and prepare yourself for it and protect yourself from things that might harm you in one way or another. Although, then again, I might be wrong about all of this, so I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open on Facebook, on IG, it is at Breaktime, on Westside, on Twitter, it is at Bagaka the D. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.